Okay, so I did end up getting the tensioner changed. That was a nightmare. It's no joke changing that tensioner. I wish I'd known. I would have done all this when I had everything apart. But either way, it's no joke. You have to disconnect the motor mounts so that you can raise the motor up to get to that back bolt in there, which is right up there. You can kind of see it with the gold with the black ring behind it. Yeah, that bolt there, you have to pull out of there, but it's too long to pull out. So you have to raise the engine up high enough to slide that bolt back underneath the mount there. So you have to disconnect the mount. You should take off that bracket. You should take off that bracket that attaches to the engine, because if you don't, you'll end up breaking your wire track in there again, like I did a second time. It's still okay, but yeah, I cracked that thing open. Fortunately, no wire damage, but yeah, I messed that up a little. Got the mount up out of there. Of course, the pain in the butt bolt in the back there you got to deal with. I did end up kind of bending that little part that sticks off of the bracket down there. I bent it out of the way a little bit so I could get to the nut easy, or the bolt easier back there. I had to disconnect or pull the bolt from this front motor mount here, and I also had to pull the bolt from the back motor mount back there. And to do that, I had to lift up the car and put it on jack stands, take off the tire here so that I could reach back through here to pull the bolt from the rear motor mount. I needed like 30 inches of extensions to get back there. The videos that I saw on it, they did not show disconnecting that rear mount, and I don't know how they possibly could have gotten it, because even with that one, I barely had enough to clear the side over there. And it's not a very comfortable thing to do. You feel like you're going to break something. Keep an eye all the way around. The one thing that I didn't keep an eye on too well was my lines, my power steering lines, where they came over here. Fortunately, I didn't break anything, but they slid in their mounts. And also something that nobody shows in the videos on the tensioner. These tensioners, it's a hydraulic tensioner. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. Okay, so this tensioner here, I can't see what I'm pointing at, but there's like a hydraulic piston there. In any case, that piston there is your tensioner. But it's not like a conventional tensioner where you just pry it and it loosens up. These, they go slow. So when you pry it, you want to pry for about 3 to 5 seconds to get the tensioner to its full extension. And just do it slowly so that you don't damage the tensioner. And when you put the new one in, what they didn't mention is the bleeding. You actually have to bleed it. Once you get it all the way in there, you're gonna grab onto the stud there, and you're gonna pull it slowly for about 5 seconds all the way down to the bottom point, and then you're gonna go 5 seconds back in the opposite direction to the highest point. Do that 3 times, so basically 6 5-second cycles, I guess you might say. But that's gonna get any air out of there. If you don't do that, it'll end up damaging everything all over again. Look it up, what happens if you don't bleed a hydraulic belt tensioner, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that's out of there. That's in there. The water pump is in there. On the water pump, right now it's semi-curing. Basically, you put the silicone in there, and you tighten down the bolts, not tight, just to where it starts, to where the silicone squeezes out, so like finger tight, and then give it an hour for it to solidify, I guess, and then you're going to torque it down to spec, and then give it 24 hours before you return it to service. Try not to use too much silicone. I did obviously have some squirt out, but that's okay. You just don't want a lot globbing out, especially on the inside, because that can get into water passages and cause all kinds of problems. But it's in there. I'm almost to the point of torquing it down. The crankshaft position sensor I put in before I did that, that's down below that. That one was 80 inch-pounds on the torque there. And the tensioner, I don't know if I mentioned, but that was 44 for both the bolt and the nut down below there on the piston. Just the bottom one. The middle one you don't have to tighten. That one, what's interesting is the one that I took out, it is in a much different shape. This one here is upside down. This is how it goes in here, like this. So that left bolt there is your pivot, basically, and the piston compresses to allow it to go up and down. Okay, this part here should be swiveling. It's seized straight, so I'm really curious how the car is going to run now that that's able to move and it's not just seized there. Also, this pulley here, there's play in it. I don't know if you can tell, but there's like radial play in there, so that'll be good to get that changed. Who knows how good this car will be when it's done. I'm eager to see. I think that's about it. I'm probably forgetting a thing or two. Obviously, I don't know if I ever mentioned that I did get the block drain broken loose. Drained everything out of there. And that one, I think, was like a 10mm socket. Just a lot of penetrating oil. It kind of penetrating oiled it up and then tapped it a little bit, let it soak for a bit, penetrating oil, tapped it, let it soak for a bit, and eventually I was able to get it to crack free. Fortunately, didn't break anything, so that's good. I think that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and let this finish curing, and then torque those down, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so one thing I didn't mention is how I lifted it to get that tensioner. I did lift up on the bottom of the oil pan. I put a block of wood from the front to the back and stopped just before the drain plug there where the pan isn't flat anymore, so that it was just on as much flat surface as I could, and I jacked up there. Be careful about going too high because you could damage the oil pan if you're not careful. But because it's pushing from the front towards the back, I wanted to counter that so that the engine didn't rotate on me because I'm removing all three mounts. So what I did is I placed another jack up against the very back of the transmission right before the subframe, and that one I basically just kind of chased the other jack with. So when I would raise it over here, I would come over here and raise this one up to meet it, and if the engine seemed like it was rotating towards the back, I would lift up here, and I could actually rotate the engine and transmission with that as well. And that really helped for lining up the bolt for the rear of the engine, because you really got to do some finagling, I don't know, some maneuvering, I don't know, to get it lined up. But I found getting the back bolt in first was the easiest, and then worrying about this front one, because this front one's pretty easy to move. So if you get close, you can kind of maneuver it to get it in there easier. We did kind of make a mess with the coolant here, but that's just from it splashing when I was draining. and the water pump is in there. It will be cured probably, oh, I don't know, probably about 8 hours from now, I'd guess. But it's in there, it's ready to go. Got the crankshaft position sensor ready to go. I got the belt tensioner ready to go. The one thing I would say, don't put the belt on the water pulley until that 24 hours is passed, because that's going to put pressure on it. So you don't want to do that until that's fully cured. I don't have the bolts on the pulley tightened yet. I'm about to do that. I do have a special tool here that works for that. This one here, it's got these 2 pegs, and it's got different size pegs you can change it out with for different vehicles. But basically you're just going to stick that into the 2 holes on the pulley, and then that'll hold it steady while you loosen the 4 bolts. And you can rotate that pulley around, so you hold it on one side, do the 2 bolts that are accessible, and then spin the pulley around and hook it again, and then do the other side. So it's pretty easy. It's not too hard a tool to use, and it makes it a whole lot easier than trying to pry between bolts to get other ones on. And when you're prying like that, it's possible you could cause damage to the bearing in there. It's not likely, maybe, but it definitely could happen. So you don't want to put a radial pressure on that any more than you have to. Definitely not anything that's any impact for sure. But the bolts there, really, they're not that tight. It's 19 foot-pounds for the pulley bolts. The water pump ones are 80 inch-pounds. The tensioner ones, I don't know if I think I told you, but those are 44, both for the bottom of the piston and also the pivot bolt. And I did notice something. The tensioner that was in there, this one, I thought this was seized. This is not seized. If you look at it, somebody tightened it. I guess they didn't think it was supposed to pivot, and because the bolt looked loose and this swiveled, they torqued it down. But you're not supposed to torque that. It's supposed to be able to swivel. So, yeah, people mess up sometimes. You can't always have faith in everybody. Sometimes people make mistakes. In any profession, there's people who aren't that great. So, try to find a good mechanic and stick with them. A couple things I forgot to mention. The thermostat I put in. On the thermostat, make sure you put the larger end, the end with the springs, on the inside of the engine, because that's where it's going to be sensing the temperature. So you want it on the water that's inside the block, the hottest, so that it's sensing that temperature, because that's where it's heating up. And the torque on those was 80 inch-pounds. On those, it looks like, yeah, I did use anti-seize on those. 80 foot-pounds in the 80 inch-pounds with the torque reduction is 56 inch-pounds. I didn't want to have any rust on there. I did have some corrosion or rust on the nuts there, so I figured I'd put it on there. The cooling fans, I attached those to the radiator. These bolts here I replaced because the other ones were really rusty. These ones were 44 inch-pounds, and I put anti-seize on those because they were really rusty, and I did the torque reduction at 31. My torque wrench only goes by every 2, so I did 32. Close enough. I did remove that plate. I'm hoping that'll make it a little easier going in. And I also need to put the alternator back in. And on the alternator, there are, let's see, ooh, shoot, gentle. There are 2 bolts on the back here. This top one's the through bolt that goes up at the very top. That one is 38 foot-pounds. I'm not going to use anti-seize on these guys, but 38 there. This bottom one is 15 foot-pounds, and then there is actually a torque spec for where the shoot, I can't think of the word. The electric cable basically comes onto the alternator, and this one's going to be 7 inch-pounds. I mean, not inch-pounds, 7 foot-pounds. So, I think that was it there. If I think of anything else, I'll come back. Something I was thinking about, with that belt tensioner like it was, I wouldn't doubt it if the reason that this seal on here is damaged is because of that. The bearing is pretty good still, but the seal, you can feel the seal's messed up. If it was pulling on it erratically, I guess it could damage that seal. So that appears to be what happened. And on the crankshaft position sensor, I know I showed you this, but it's worse on the other side. It's just eaten through. There's like holes in it. It's just a matter of time before that would have been a problem, and it's not worth breaking down on the side of the road, even if you do have AAA. Okay, so my videos have been a little confusing for me, so I'm not sure if I got the stuff. On the thermostat, if I didn't say the torque on those are 80 inch-pounds. I did mention some things about it, but I did not mention the jiggle valve. The jiggle valve is that little teeny pin that's like a little flapper inside the thermostat, and it needs to be up at the top. That allows the air bubbles to get through. It needs to be straight at the top or within 10 degrees to either side. So it's pretty specific, so you want to make sure that that's the right way. Otherwise you can end up getting air bubbles in there and end up with overheating in places and stuff. So make sure you do that right. The water pump's all in there. We're almost ready to go. I'm almost ready to put the belt in. On the cooling fans, when I put this in, I did have the plate off. It was way easier. I mounted the fans to the radiator before I put it in, so I put it in as an assembly, and I took off that plate, and there was just, the plate made a huge difference. Instead of scraping, you know, I had like a ½ inch of clearance there, so quite a big difference. There was something else, but I'm not quite sure what it was at the moment, so I'll come back in just a second. Okay, so the other thing was the alternator. I had a real pain of a time with the alternator. You can see it's all scuffed up there because it was getting jammed on me. The top there, where the through bolt goes through, I could not get it to line up. I got the bolt in the bottom. I was able to get that one in. And then I was able to get the top one in, and I was able to get it through halfway, but I couldn't get the far side. So I spent a lot of time prying on it, and a lot of time probably swearing and not being very happy. Finally got it in there and torqued down everything on there. It was 38 on the through bolt, 15 on the lower bolt, which is way back behind there. The only way I could get to that was from underneath. It's a little hard to get back in there and torque it, but I was able to with a small torque wrench and a adapter, I guess it was, that allowed me to put a little bit bigger socket on there, so it allowed me to reach deeper in there, because you got to get a real specific depth, because there's not a lot of clearance. But on the top here, where that rubber boot's at, the nut under there was 7 foot-pounds. The 7 and the 15 you can convert to inch-pounds, so 7 would inch, 7 foot-pounds in inch-pounds would be 84, and then on the 15, let's see, that'd be 150 plus 30, 180. So 180 inch-pounds, and I didn't put any C's on these, so 180 inch-pounds if you wanted to do the inch-pounds, or 15 foot-pounds. And I think that was it. Hopefully you get the alternator in easier than I did, because it wasn't very enjoyable, to be honest. But it's in there now, and I'm almost ready to put the belt on. The only thing that I am going to do, I'm going to pull the tire off there and go ahead and grease up those connections that I wasn't able to finish up with. I didn't want to have any more headaches with the grease gun, so I bought a couple of things. These are kind of cool. It's called Lock and Lube. It is a locking grease coupler, and when you push that lever, it opens up on the end so that you can grab, kind of like a claw tool that you would grab something out of an engine with. It grabs onto the zerk or the nipple there, and it kind of pulls it in, you know, pulls itself onto it, and then you have it locked on there. You're not leaking grease everywhere, and that should be very nice compared to the other one, which was leaking grease everywhere. Also, I got this 90-degree coupler, so any of those that are real hard to get to, this I can lock onto. It has a zerk fitting of its own in there, so you just lock on with the other one after you put this onto it. So hopefully this will not be too hard to get off, but I'm going to go ahead and try those out while I'm waiting for the silicone to cure. So we're almost there.